Hello, hello. Today I am joined by two incredible guests. We have Laura and Morgan on with us today, which are the co-authors of the Cycle book. And I'm really excited to talk about this, just how women can help themselves feel better in their body. Laura is an ASEX certified sex therapist, and Morgan is a licensed midwife, birth center founder, and a lactation consultant. And so together, they're helping people better understand their hormones, cycles, body literacy, and reclaim body autonomy through this compassionate and inclusive care lens that they offer. And so today we're diving into how understanding your cycle can support you sexually, pleasurably. So that's a word. I didn't make that up. Pleasurably and emotional well-being overall. So I'm really excited to have them both on the show today. Let us get started with this. All right. Hi, Morgan and Laura. Thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Thank you so much for
Thanks.
having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's very neat. I love when I get messages like that coming through through my email of like, "Hey, we're doing this work on hormones and cycles and all these things that women, information that women don't get naturally." I like what you said, Laura, before we are hitting record. It's like we want people to have this information before they get into the crisis mode, which is so important. Especially, I mainly work with women myself, and so constantly having conversations around here's what you need to know in life like in your female born body. So yeah, tell us a little. Okay, I got the story, but I want for listeners to know, like, tell us a little about this journey that you all have been on. You've met, you were friends first, became colleagues, and then how did it even come to fruition that you wanted to talk about this topic?
Yeah. Morgan and I have been friends since our early 20s. And so we've been through a lot of our own life experiences together before we went into therapy and then sex therapy and midwifery. And Morgan also opened up a birth center and she teaches and she's an advocate. So, before we sort of like found our space in our work, we were just like everyone else we knew, struggling to understand our bodies and our relationships and sex and how to feel okay. And between the two of us, we've over the years dealt with PMDD, endometriosis, infertility, postpartum OCD, many other experiences. And even as we became providers and we're educated ourselves, we still to this day are trying to figure out how to navigate healthcare systems, advocate for ourselves, find answers. It's really, really hard. And actually, this book came out of a moment where Morgan taught me how to cycle track when I was dealing with infertility. And it was a moment where I had kind of been like, tossed around the, sort of infertility industrial complex, to be honest, and was really lost. And, you know, I had no pathway forward and really, really was feeling just like really alone and low. And my body was a disaster. And this sort of idea that I could understand my body and that hormones meant more than just like if I could get pregnant or not was really life-changing for me. And I realized just all of the spaces in which people don't have this information. And we really wrote this book as a tool for ourselves, for our friends, for the people that we work with. We use it all the time in our work. The method that we designed is something that we've been, using with clients for many, many years. Morgan, I don't know if you want to add to that, but I
Mhm.
mean, it's just there's one last thing I want to say before Morgan, you sort of like tag on here. I'm a person, I've been diagnosed with PMDD since I was 19 years old, and the fertility medications that I was prescribed made me really sick. And at the time, I couldn't figure out how to communicate that besides just saying what was happening to my body. Now, years removed, I have tried to research what information exists about, for a person who has a sensitivity, a sort of brain sensitivity to a hormonal shift, what would a fertility medication do to that person? There's no information out there. There's no research about it. You cannot find anything. There's sort of like studies that have been able to say if we like extrapolate some of the information that we know, here's how you could potentially apply it to this particular scenario. But this is just one tiny area, and there's just so many areas where we know truly nothing about how these things impact a person.
Mhm.
And it's really continues, like the more people we talk to through this project, the more people we see in our offices, it continues to be mind blowing how little we know and how few and far between real resources are for people experiencing any of these conditions. That's my little side rant. Um, Morgan, please.
I mean, I do think your side rant is very important. I think that concept is like what brought me to this work in realizing, we live at a time where our healthcare system is broken and not likely to be fixed within our lifetime. And that system is based on like systemic injustices, like what Laura's talking about, the fact that we don't even have information or research on these topics. Like nobody's studying menstruating bodies, nobody's like figuring out what systems work or not. Like we rarely have these diagnoses, we have tons of misdiagnoses. Like that's so deep before we're even training providers to offer healthcare.
Mhm.
That's the training that they're getting, is without all of this information. And so we live in this time where we're like meant to engage with the healthcare system and get information and learn how to take care of ourselves, but those systems don't always have the information we need. And I think through years of working and collaborating with people like Laura, it's become so clear that there are awesome pathways of getting information, getting it individualized, getting it tailored to you, and like understanding what your body needs, that doesn't have to come from a big system. It can come from yourself. The problem is that nobody taught us how to interpret that information or do anything with it. And so that's where I love working with people and identifying the like hormonal presentation, the individuality of their human body experience. When we think about like what are hormones, they're literally just communication tools in your
Mhm.
body, like
Mhm.
chemical messengers that communicate your body's needs.
Mhm.
And we never get taught how to listen to that communication. But once we start to identify that pattern and realize all of us are a little bit different, all of it's slightly different than somebody else, but it's not that complicated. Once we can hear that communication, you can actually do something with it. And then you can even like navigate those broken systems to get your self care, or, find out what support looks like for you. So I do think that the side rant is probably the most relevant piece of this for me, and what I've kind of devoted my days to is really trying to offer the concept that the like base information on your well-being probably comes from the like home that is your body,
Mhm.
rather than maybe an institute or an expert over here. Like they are there to help you in your existence, but ultimately understanding your existence comes from within your body. We just need to learn how to listen to it and what it needs.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that aligns so much. Like I often say with my clients too, it's like your body is a genius, exactly as you're saying. Like we can information gather so much from something as simple as cycle tracking. And I want to just like say too, I understand people that have irregular cycles. This is where I get a lot of pushback in understanding, well, I can't cycle track because my period is every other week or right. I don't, and I'm like, that's also information. That's also helpful and valuable. And so, yeah, let's get into this a little bit. If somebody is choosing to cycle track, it's more than just the period. It's more than just that phase of menstruation. What are some things that you all feel is really important for people to know when it comes to their maybe we focus more on the sexual realm, like their desire, their libido, their intimacy and connection with somebody.
Yeah, I love that you said it's more than just the bleeding phase.
Mhm.
We're really using the cycle as a way to understand what those hormones are communicating. And the hormone shifts that occur throughout an entire cycle are helpful, not just when you're bleeding. And of course, like Morgan always says, like the bleeding phase, you have to identify it for practical reasons so you can be prepared. But beyond that, like, the ovulatory shift, the different hormonal shifts in the entirety of that cycle are helpful to understand. And so if we are examining something related to sexuality, what Morgan and I like to advocate for is an individualized approach to tracking. So you are tracking what matters most to you. What do you want to understand better about yourself? What bothers you about how things feel for you? What would you like to feel different? What's feeling great that you would like to feel more frequently? These would be the areas that we would encourage people to track. And so part of what we like to do is also kind of expand this definition of tracking. The way we like to look at this is an organized way of listening to the body and recording the sensations that you observe. That's it. Just like a check-in, daily check-in. When I'm tracking, what am I, asking myself if I experienced or not? I'm going to record that and then I'm going to be able to look at that and interpret it later. So when we're talking about sexuality, libido is a huge one that people like to track. And I would say get more specific. For you, what does libido mean? Does that mean like penetrative sex, or does that mean something different than that? Does that mean fantasy? Does that mean feeling good in your body? Does that mean wanting to make out with someone? Does that mean something related to masturbation? We don't even have to be talking about partnered sex here, right? Like I would say, like, ask yourself, is it yearning? Is it feeling romantic? What is that for you? And then track that for a few cycles and maybe come up with, I don't know, 1 to 3 categories related to your sexuality that you want to understand better. This stuff is like, it's mind blowing when you see it on a piece of paper over the course of a few cycles. It's fascinating.
Yeah, just like I've done a couple podcasts on like how to use your hormones to hack your life. And even something like this, right? Like when I schedule podcast interviews, I don't schedule when I'm in menstruation. Like that is my rest time. I don't do heavy clients on my menstruation time because that's my workouts change. Like everything changes based on where I'm at in my cycle. And yeah, it wasn't until I would say for me personally, like maybe 2020, 2021, when I heard that being on birth control long term wasn't the greatest thing for you. I was like, oh, what do you mean? And, going through my learning process on that and doing the books and the podcasts and all that on hormones, like, wow, yeah, you can actually learn so much about yourself and change also so much about yourself if you take this path of, yeah, knowledge and curiosity with it. What would you
It's so
say?
true.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Morgan.
I do feel like people innately have that curiosity. Like people are so like even though we live in a world that's pretty like fosters removal from ourself, like we're all on our phones and we have our 9 to 5s and we're not like very good at like listening to our body sometimes. We like get into a project and forget to go pee 5 hours later. You're like, oh my God, what was I doing? But I do think when it comes down to it, when you really start to talk to people, that curiosity, like people have it and they also have this innate intuition to know what's going on, like wherever that curiosity of a like I think I want to investigate this, like Laura was talking about, like I think maybe I want to track these couple things that are a little bit more in tuned around this bigger concept of libido. Like people have such amazing intuition on figuring out where their body maybe needs more support or less or whatever it might be. And I think like acknowledging that and giving it a lot more onus to people that they have that power within them. We just aren't really taught to pay attention to that very well.
hmm And that's where I find like our job as clinicians and in this work is like we get to give them that microphone for their body. We get to give them that permission to start exploring. And in my work, I bring in a lot of somatic practice. And what I find with this too is in doing that, they're like, oh yeah, the pain in my neck, the pain, the pain, the pain. I'm like, okay, where do you feel good? Where do you feel neutral? Like where's pleasure in your body right now? And so it's like, yeah, just offering that shift in lens too, which is then super helpful into the space of sexuality. If we're only focusing on the bad. And that's, I feel like you're right, all the narratives that we get around hormones. Like I have a niece that's in her teenage years right now, and it's like the raging teenage hormones, right? Just like the messages and the stories and the labels that we place on people, and just like the bad rap that like, oh, your hormones get, right? Or you're like, oh, you're on your period. Just like it's so shameful, just the language that people put on us with this.
Yeah, it's so true. I love that you're doing, this like somatic work with like where do you feel neutral? Where do you feel good? Where do you feel pleasure? Do you, if it's okay if I ask you a question, do you find that when you're doing that work with your clients that you're seeing major shifts in introducing like the neutral, the good, the pleasure in expanding beyond the pain?
Yeah. And I think it's like just giving them the language around it that again, it's okay to experience that. And I love when they have that light bulb moment of even just like, oh, I'm noticing like my palms are sweaty. Oh, I'm noticing like I can actually feel my heartbeat. I can actually like feel my feet connected to the surface of the ground. Like even stuff like that. I think it just helps them realize and make that shift of like, wow, I do actually have a lot of knowledge here. I do actually have more awareness maybe than I've been giving myself credit for. And then translating that exactly as you guys are saying in the work that you do, how when we cycle our tracking, like using that as a tool to get more curious and uncover more information about self.
Oh, I love it. And so, I mean, that's also part of, though, what we are not taught to do, which is to actually observe what's happening in the body and not just what feels bad or alarming, but also the pieces that feel good. So I love that practice. That's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you'll be proud. In my intake, I literally ask people, "Do you track your cycle?" It's one of the questions on my
So
intake form
cool.
because yeah,
Yes.
it is so important. Yeah, are there any myths that are coming up for either of you? Like any myths that we need to bust right now around like hormones or cycles or anything that is coming up?
I think I'm always trying to bust the myths that hormones feel the same for people.
Hmm.
There's all this really awesome stuff that's happening on social media around understanding hormones. But sometimes some of that language gets turned into the like concept of hashtag luteal, and you're gonna feel this way. Like you're gonna feel lethargic, you're gonna feel bad, you're gonna feel this. And it's just not true. That's true for a lot of people. But if you're not experiencing some of those like average sensations, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. Everybody just experiences these things differently. Like some people feel awesome during ovulation, some
Hmm.
people feel horrid during ovulation. And that's just how they process those hormones and the circumstances of being in their body. So I think my big myth busting is just that hormones are super individual, and it's really like an accessible thing to figure out what your hormones mean to you and how they communicate. And they do have a reliable communication method, but you don't have to like prescribe other people's feelings onto yourself to
Hmm.
get that understanding.
Hmm. And I like to, yeah, just offering like it's not a one size fits all. Something that I did when I was early on my learning journey of all of this was I would see where menstruation was going to be, or like luteal, deep in the luteal trenches is what I call it. And then if I had something going on that I couldn't change, I would almost label. I would already have that experience before actually having the experience, and it was really shooting myself in the foot because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be in luteal. This is gonna suck. I'm not gonna want to be there. It was like such a drag. And I found myself doing that. And I went to something, I can't remember what it was, but I remember being like, wow, I'm on my period and I'm still having fun. Like I'm still present, like I'm still actually enjoying myself. And so that was helpful in my journey as well of just noticing like, okay, yeah, like where am I maybe using the label or my learnings as a disadvantage to myself here? Because you're right, it's not even every cycle does not always look the same for I would guess like most people, sometimes my cramps are super heavy and sometimes I'm like, oh shit, like period is tomorrow, here we go.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, Morgan used the word average when she said, if your experience isn't the average, and by average, she means the actual like average. And I think that that's really interesting because when we think about a lot of the tools that we have to understand how our hormones show up, like apps that people use to track their cycles and predict cycle phases, they
Mhm.
are using averages. They are using calendar method averages. What if you take a gigantic group of people, what dates are most common in the context of a mathematical average, and how would we apply that to an individual user? But that's not really how our hormones work. I mean, that leads to a lot of inaccuracies with these apps. I think the research shows they're like 20% effective at accurately predicting the ovulation phase, for example. And it's this idea that even within our own bodies, exactly like you're saying, our cycles can feel different
Mhm.
every single time. And there are probably going to be some fairly reliable patterns. But because we are, humans who exist in our environments and are, impacted by our daily lives looking pretty different all of the time, like that means that things show up differently in our bodies too. And so there's something actually, I think, very liberating about recognizing that we don't have to look outside of ourselves to averages or other people's kind of experience to understand our own. We can be in community, we can be in communication, all of that is fantastic. But if something is happening for someone else that isn't happening for us, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's something wrong here. It just means that we get to ask ourselves and be curious about what our body is telling us and then make choices based on that.
Yeah. Oh, just a curiosity around the app since you brought it up. I'm wondering, do either of you have the apps that you recommend for people to use for cycle tracking or yeah, like favorites that you like or none? Tell people to stop using cycle tracking apps is totally fine too.
I mean, I think generally we're fans of moving away from the apps.
Yeah.
There's a big piece of it that Laura is describing about the inaccuracy and that kind of false narrative that I think gets really pushed on people in a predatory way. I see it all the time in my clinic that people are told this is accurate information and that it's reliable. I'm a midwife, and so I end up working with people that are trying to get pregnant or not trying to get pregnant. And, we can often figure out after like 2 minutes into a visit that their 5 years of cycle tracking has been giving them false information the whole time, which has deeply impacted their life plans on whether they're like trying to build a family or not. If we're simply off by timing, it's devastating to find that out. So I think the accuracy piece is really big, but another piece of it too is just the state of things right now is that those apps don't have privacy protection. So the privacy protection that people are used to engaging with around their health information, things like HIPAA that you would engage with a doctor or, getting lab work done, anything like that, like any of that record keeping, that is protected and private. But the information that's on these apps is not. And unfortunately, we have many cases of this information being bought and sold by private industries to be used for many different things and also being pulled up in court cases. And it's simply not safe for people to have that type of information in many places around this country, at least, and around the world. And so I think there is that removal. But I do also feel that there's something so different about stopping and tracking once a day, like maybe spend 20 seconds, maybe it's 2 minutes, whatever that is, but a once a day check in with yourself, where there's something that's really different experientially about sitting and thinking about that and recording it on a piece of paper or in a notebook. That's really different than plugging it in on the phone and then having that phone tell you how you feel. Like there's something about that algorithm and that engagement that sometimes doesn't foster that same direct communication. It puts this like barrier between your understanding. There's some of those algorithms that have kind of set it in a way to say, the phone is smarter than you. They show you that fancy graph. There's like all these buttons and toggles and things. And you're like, God, I could never understand this. But there are really simple ways to make it super accessible. And like you own that information and you know it like nobody else does. And then you also get the accuracy that gets lost in some of the apps. So that's my feeling.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate the honesty around it. Yeah, and I feel like more popular lately has been things like your Apple Watch cycle tracking and because it can test your body temperature and they're projecting like pushing the more accuracy of that or the Aura rings or something like that. Would you favor things like that over regular app testing, or would you just want like pen to paper, track your own cycle?
I
Morgan,
mean,
how do you feel
truly,
about wearables?
I mean, truly, like I work with clients who do everything. Like I have tried, I've worked hands-on with every wearable and every app and engaged with them all. Like the best tracking system is the one that works for you and that you actually use and
Mhm.
you feel good about. So it can be a wearable, it can be an app. Like there's not truly this like judgment around that. But I think as working as a healthcare provider, um, I do have a PSA on like protecting somebody and trying to offer them something that I
Mhm.
think is going to give them the most positive feedback the fastest.
Mhm.
Um, so that being said, there's lots of ways to engage those wearables with paper tracking if you're interested in that. It doesn't make you reliant on that in that way. I think whatever works for you works great. I'm like, I don't know, I'm old school and I get annoyed when things cost $1 million. And so sometimes the barrier of cost in the
Mhm.
wearables, um, I wish people knew that like you don't need the wearable to get the accurate information. Like you can get like a $6 thermometer and keep it on your bedside table and it's just as accurate, if not more for a lot of them that are doing like periphery temperatures like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's whatever works for you works great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me add. Yes, I agree. We really want people to have more body information. Whatever pathway feels good for you is great. But I do think that we are in a moment where we see that the cost of convenience has led to a lot of technologies that people have a lot of questions about, and there's a lot of opacity around. And as users, we don't often have a ton of clear, direct communication about what is happening with the information that we are very readily sharing, which is very deep and very personal. And I do think that for all of us, when we're maybe like as like a global society grappling with this question of like, what do we do with friction in general? Do we
Mhm.
lean into this? Do we like, remove ourselves entirely from some of the ways in which we can engage with things that are hard? And from a clinical design perspective, the chart that Morgan and I created, which is in the book, it's like a paper tracking chart. It's really cute and really fun to use, actually. But from a clinical perspective, the pieces of practice and theory that we built on, mindfulness-based interventions, a lot of really great somatic data, the sort of approach of body neutrality, and also the understanding that for people who have experienced trauma of any sort,
Mhm.
um, that dissociation can lead to some negative health outcomes. What we're really attempting to do here is bring people back into their bodies
Mhm.
in a very practical, accessible, a little tiny bit of friction, not entirely frictionless, but not like so friction heavy that we're like adding a ton of work to someone who already has to self-advocate more than they should. We're trying to strike a balance where we're giving people tools that they don't even know that they're developing to help them really be in charge of their bodies and have a little bit more real sensory information
Mhm.
to use to help guide real informed decision making for what their mental and physical health future looks like.
Mhm.
So there's, I think, a lot, kind of like there's a lot philosophically that goes into our thoughts here on why something as simple as like pen and paper versus app or wearable, is an important discussion point.
Mhm.
It's there's a lot here.
Yeah, it's and especially just because it is the biggest buzz right now, I feel like with Aura Ring and whatnot, and especially when Apple Watch launched the tracking and like cycle tracking and stuff, a lot of people or even natural cycles, right? Like a lot of my clients hop on this. And so yeah, I just had curiosity around that. I do also find you're right, especially if we're bringing in that somatic lens, going back to the your body is the genius, like you already have that information. And I like that you named too. There have been some days where my app has been like, oh, today is going to be like a couch and snack day. And I'm like, I actually have a lot of energy today. Like today is
Right.
not a couch and snack day for me. So thanks for that. Yeah, clarification that you offered too on just it's taking the average data. And yeah, and it's okay if you don't fit into the box of what your app is telling you, right? If you're having a different experience, that's really ultimately, I think this whole message of the show today is like you are what matters. It doesn't matter what your friend or sister or whoever else is experiencing in their cycle. It's what is important to you.
It is cool how smart and clever the body really is in that it responds to the world we live in, So no matter what, even if you've like, I've locked in on my health, it's perfection and my systems are all like clockwork, like your body is so clever and sensitive and responsive that it does change how it functions to
Hmm.
better fit in the world when stuff's going on. So whether that's like, craziness at work, something in your family dynamic, there's a war going on, like whatever that is, your body will shift hormonal phases to prioritize your health and functionality.
Hmm.
And that's just the piece that the algorithms can't like put in. That's not, it's too nuanced, it's too individualized. That is the like crazy, amazing human experience thing. But once you learn the ways that your hormones communicate in your body, you can still have that clear, like so outlined communication of what's happening in your body to have the predictive element, the like
Hmm.
predictive algorithm that they're trying to do. They can't do it, but you can know, oh, when this thing happens in my body, I know I'm shifting into this phase. Now I know what's going on and how it's responding to the world that I live in. So this makes perfect sense to my days. Like that's the piece that just is
Hmm.
so amazing and cool about the body, but the apps just can't get it yet.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I want to ask next, at what point do you think we should start talking to people about their hormones, like age-wise? The
What do
I
you
lead.
mean,
think, Laura?
I mean, our one of our goals is that this becomes general health information.
Mhm.
It's not siloed in whatever type of reproductive sex ed a young person receives, which is often shaped by the culture that that young person is in, or the policies in the place that young person lives, but that this is just like general body information that a person learns, that we
Mhm.
all have hormones, they're in all major body systems, that when there are regular cyclical shifts or when there are reproductive life events, that those shifts can then potentially impact all of those other body systems where the hormone receptors are located. And so just this kind of like, really, really basic information so that people at a young age understand that this is how the body works, not that these are just only related to reproduction, because that really does a disservice to all of us. And it catches us really off guard when things happen. And I mean, I guess I would say, I don't know, these ages that we're learning about our body systems,
Mhm.
that, yeah, the endocrine system is a part of that, but like, expanding that a little bit. That's my take.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there are some countries that are moving to like put initiatives forward to say, hey, anyone who goes to a public education deserves menstrual education from a non-fertility perspective, from
Mhm.
non-reproductive perspective. Like we need to understand what these hormones are and how they function in the body totality. Um, so I think early and frequently as we're learning, like this is like how we all live. We live in a body. We
Mhm.
should know how they work.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same camp as you guys. Usually, this is my platform on like pleasure positive and sex positive sex ed and whatnot. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm definitely all for the more awareness. No matter, I love Logan Lovekoff's work and her sex education around like what is even age appropriate at this point, you know? And so, yeah, I agree. I think that yeah, no matter the age, like we get to have this information about ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think especially if we start at younger ages, it can help relieve so much shame that people experience around menstruation or sexuality or pleasure, orgasm, relationships, all of it.
Totally. It's so scary when we don't have any information. It feels like a scary mystery inside of ourselves that we don't know who to go to help solve. It's just so many layers of that fear and that shame.
Yeah. I just feel for the people that you're just going about life, you're maybe probably in middle school, and then all of a sudden your vagina starts bleeding and you have no
Mhm.
idea why or what's happening. Like
Yeah.
talk traumatic, right? Of course.
Yeah.
And I've had several clients like come through that's been their experience. And I'm just like, gosh, like how much, yeah, we put so much stigma around this stuff and around this conversation when I love your lens on it. It's like it's just general body health information. There's nothing wrong about it, bad about it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, we don't
And
have time
people
to get
are,
into the male female comparison around this, but
yeah,
it's
people are menstruating so much earlier than they used
Mhm.
to as well. So this is happening for people in elementary school,
Yeah.
and it's just like we need to talk to people as soon as they can talk.
Mhm, mhm. Oh, you can talk, you can understand me. Here's what you need to know.
Just some basics about how to take care of yourself and your body and know when you have needs.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for coming onto the show. I would love to, yeah, hear a little bit more about the book and for people that are interested in either the book or getting in contact with you, where can we go and learn more about this?
Yeah, the cycle book is kind of Laura and mine's labor of love. We really wanted to create this tool for people to be able to get this information, to get that information that we should have gotten when we were younger, but
Mhm.
then also have these like gorgeous charts that you can track your information in with so much ease and actually with pleasure. We spent so much time designing them in a way that not only was functionally an enjoyable experience, but also gave you the most communicative pathway to understanding what's happening.
Mhm.
So that's something we're really proud of. That once you have that information in this book, you can look back at it and say, "Oh my God, I totally get it. I understand. I know what this is." So
Mhm.
the book comes with over a year's worth of cycle charts in it. You can get the book anywhere that books are sold online or at your local bookshop. And then Laura and I are on social media at the Cycle Book, and you can find us there. You can also find us on our website. It's lauraandmorgan.com and get more information about our private practices and more projects that we're up to. We love talking to people about hormones and their charts. So please shoot us a DM. We want to talk about it all day.
Mhm. Yay. Thank you so much, yeah, for the work that you're doing and just the voice that you're putting to this. Appreciate that you are now, yeah, you have the book, you're doing the podcast, like as many people that we can reach, even if it just plants a small seed for them to have some more curiosity around this. I think it's a step in the right direction. So yeah, thank you both for coming onto the show today. It was really a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you,
having
Rachel.
us. It was a treat.
Mhm.